There was once a boy who lived with his family on a small farm at the top of a hill. Every day he worked hard helping his parents, sowing seed in the fields, feeding the cows, looking after the chickens. And every evening as the sun went down, he would sit in his favourite spot with a bottle of fresh milk and a hunk of fresh bread and a big piece of homemade cheese, and he would watch the sun go down. Sometimes the boy got tired of his life working hard on the farm. He wondered whether other children had to work as hard as he did. And he would sit and dream of living in a palace with whole rooms full of gold and jewels. Then he wouldn't have to work as hard as he did now. And his dreams were inspired by the things that he could see as he sat and drank his milk and ate his bread and cheese every evening. As he looked out, his eyes fell first on the setting sun, and then they scanned across the horizon, until at last they landed on the hill opposite his own. And on top of that hill there was a house, with windows that were made of gold. And the boy would look at them as they gleamed and shone with a lustre that blew his mind. They glittered and gleamed with a richness and glow that filled his heart. And he would dream of living in a house with a family who were rich enough for the windows to be made of gold. And then one day his father came to him and said, "Son, you've worked hard. You've earned yourself a day off. Today shall be yours to call your own." And then he handed the boy a wrapped up package of bread and cheese and a bottle of milk, and he sent him on his way. And the boy stood on his favourite spot, and he knew straight away what he was going to do. He would go and seek out the house with the golden windows. Hoisting his knapsack onto his back, he picked up a thick, gnarled stick and set off down the hill. He walked down the hill from his house beside a glistening stream that glimmered in the sunlight. He listened to the singing of the birds as he moved beneath the canopy of green leaves in the forest. At lunchtime, he found a shady, mossy spot by a pool, unwrapped his parcel of food, and as he ate, he watched dragonflies and butterflies playing across the water. When he'd finished eating, he tidied up his things, put his bag back on his back, and he wandered through the meadow, where rabbits scampered from his feet and deer grazed in the long grass. After a while, he began to climb the hill opposite his own, at the top of which he knew he would find the house with the golden windows. The lowering sun warmed his back, bathing him in its golden glow, as excitement danced in his belly. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The path curved and climbed to the top of the hill until he knew the moment had come. Around this next bend was the house. He was about to see those golden windows up close for the first time. He held his breath as he rounded the corner, raised his eyes, and then he gasped in surprise, for there, in front of him, was just an ordinary house. It was just a farmhouse, like his own, with windows of plain glass, not a nugget of gold anywhere among them. So he turned to look back down the path where he'd come from, confused. He knew he'd come the right way, but where was the house? As he looked around him, he heard whistling coming down the path from the house in front of him. And then a girl came into view. She stopped when she saw him. "Excuse me," he said. I've travelled today especially to see the house with the golden windows. They gleam and they glow, and they're the most wonderful thing I've ever seen. But I can't seem to find it. Do you know where it is?" And the girl smiled excitedly. "I know the house of which you speak," she exclaimed. "You've just climbed the wrong hill. It's over there. Look." And she turned him by his shoulders and pointed across the valley to a house on a hilltop whose windows were bathed in gold by the setting of the sun. "But that's my house," he cried. And they stood, side by side, in silence, as they looked at the glittering gold of the setting sun. And it dawned in their hearts that sometimes we don't see the gold that is all around us because it becomes too familiar. After a while, he turned and shook her hand, and he thanked her, and then he set off back down the hill on his way home. And as he walked, his head was full of deer and rabbits, and butterflies and dragonflies, and forests and pools and streams, and cows and chickens and fields and cheese and bread and milk. And as he reached his own home in the gathering dusk, he made his way to his favourite spot, and he sat down. Just this once he sat down with his back to the view across the valley that he loved, and his eyes fixed instead on his own home. His own home, the house with the golden windows.